and if that's the case, that's fine. But they should have taken an extra half an hour to figure out what costs were what to tell us.
Right.
They didn't do that.
John, are we gonna get ice skate
I
now?
don't think they know exactly what they're gonna have to do
I was wondering what they never.
until they get up there and start seeing where they're putting the cameras.
But they should,
And if
somebody
that goes
should.
down where all the snow on it.
That's not.
Good for the bikes though.
But I know that
Lake's not
when we
here
were
for
out there
us.
and they were looking, they were like, oh man, they got that overhang.
Mm-hmm.
They don't sell that cameras, to catch the best part. I said we might.
We froze the other day and then opened back up again.
Exactly.
All right, we are back in session. It is 6:30. Are we streaming?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we are on to citizen participation. Per Village Resolution 2017-01, anyone wishing to address the village board during citizen participation will be allowed 5 minutes. Your subject must specifically relate to matters under the jurisdiction of the village board, whether on the agenda or not. The village board should not engage in a discussion regarding comments because it was not part of the publicly noticed agenda. Upon conclusion of the citizen participation segment, members of the audience are not allowed further comment unless they're participating in a public hearing or specifically allowed by a majority vote of the village board due to involvement in an agenda item. All that said, going once, going twice. Okay, I will close citizen participation. We'll move on to consent agenda. One motion and a second will approve all the following items. Any item may be pulled from the list and voted on separately.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to miscellaneous business. Item 1, consideration of request to modify September approval of AV upgrades for meeting rooms from ARPA funds. And Eileen's got a memo here. Any questions for Eileen?
I just wanted to note, at one point I had discussed this and trustee Alexander had expressed some concerns about it. He did review my memo and discussed it with me. He said he is supportive of this. His biggest concern is he just wants to make sure it's user-friendly for everybody. So I will make sure staff is trained on it and we'll have some laminated instructions in the meeting rooms that will hopefully assist users with the functionality of the system.
So should the motion be approval of the meeting room AV equipment? That's what you're looking for, up to 27,000?
Yep, that's correct, and utilizing ARPA funds.
I'll make a motion to approve meeting room AV equipment upgrading, applying up to $27,000 in ARPA funds.
I'll second.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, consider approval of hiring police officer. You see the memo from Deputy Chief DeMeo. And any questions for the chief?
So he took his physical and drug screen today, so I should have those results back in a couple days. And the last thing would be village board approval pending those results are okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the hire of Paul Matowski as a full-time police officer pending successful completion of physical exam and drug screen.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, consider approval of wastewater facilities plan. And there's a memo here from Jason. Any comments, Jason?
So much like we just completed for the water utility, now we're looking to do the same thing for the wastewater utility. We did budget $75,000 for it. Actually, tonight we have Leo Cusick from Applied Technologies with us. He's just going to hit the high points on what we're planning to do in this study and answer any questions. The two of us can answer any questions you may have.
So I'll keep this brief, but more than happy to answer questions. So a wastewater treatment facilities plan basically looks at both the treatment plant and the collection system and looks at what kinds of upgrades are going to be required to give it another 20 years of life, if you will. And so what are the necessary upgrades when it comes to capacity or maybe age and condition, something that's, falling apart. We need to make sure we address that. It's going to feed into a capital improvements plan, and so that Jason has the necessary information to make choices of when things need to be budgeted for, et cetera. As far as what do we look at? We look at population data that's going to feed into flows and loadings. We look at what are the effluent limits that we can expect, or maybe biosolids issues that we could predict within the next 20 years. And so it's really the 10,000-foot view of it all that leads us towards a design of basically what are the upgrades that we need to actually spend time on the details so that we make sure we're giving Jason and Tom and the rest of the team the tools they need to effectively convey and treat wastewater.
The other thing I want to point out is this also checks a box for funding. When it comes to clean water funding, this is a requirement of that we do this study every so often. So we'll have that ready to go.
I got a bunch of questions, Dan, but I figured let everybody else go first, so my kids on my mind.
Yeah, I just had a question on
Sure.
the, how long does it take to do the, to review it?
For DNR, for the department?
Yeah.
Usually it's about a 90-day review period.
Any days?
I will say they generally ask for an extension, so I would say realistically you should bet on about 4 months.
4 months, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
I guess 2 questions. I'm assuming this will cover PFAS and
Yep.
possible needs on treatment there?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
and then,
For what we know.
Yeah, yeah,
I was going to say, that's,
it's an ever-changing thing, I get it, yeah.
well, and one comment I'll make there is, obviously water is, you guys know it better than anyone, right, with the well. Water is the first thing drinking water is the first thing that's really going to be affected by PFAS. I would expect, based on where the industry's heading, that biosolids would be the next, and then last would be effluent itself coming out of the wastewater treatment facility. And I don't know, as far as timeline at this moment, when I would expect either biosolids or effluent to be affected by that. But that's something we will evaluate within this.
And then, I guess it's more a question for you, Jason, just since there's also a 10 or 20 year, should we, just maybe outside the scope of their work, but I want to make sure from a staffing perspective, like, we've got the right, I don't know, we've got Tom leading things over there, but just making sure we have like good succession planning and, can't all be on Tom for the next 20 years, I'm sure.
That's a valid point, and I think we can look at this with that in mind. The only other thing I would say to that is we do have to look at that on an annual basis through our compliance maintenance, our CMAR report. That talks about staffing, and we get graded on our staffing. So, but we'll certainly keep that in mind.
40 launches into his litany of questions. Any other questions? All right, 40.
Thank you for coming in tonight.
Sure.
I've had a long time experience with your company,
Okay.
being a past member of the past board. However, I won't hold that against you. My question is, though, is that this $75,000 to complete a study, it seems a bit high. And I guess my question is, this is a proposal for needed/desired work, and does this also include the full plan? And I've read to the next page, and I guess it does not. But you can correct me if I'm wrong. But what I really would like to see, instead of just a lump sum number, I'd like to see a breakout of how your study is accumulating $75,000.
Sure.
Because that seems awful high.
I would be more than happy to.
And the other thing is.
Hang on.
Well,
Let's get-
I just.
I know, he's got an answer to your question, so
Well, he's
let's-
going to say, yeah, then we're going to do that.
Okay, let him answer it then.
I mean, as far as the breakdown, obviously, we went through and looked task by task and put hours and rates to basically get to a number. I'd be happy to provide that with Jason's consent, so.
Well, I guess the only thing that bothers me is that, I was a contractor. And if I came to your house and was going to put new windows or doors in your house, and I just say, well, okay, it's going to be $122,000. you'd like to know where that money's going.
Understand? Yeah,
And that's exactly what I'm asking for.
happy to.
Now, the compensation for the water treatment plant facilities plan will be a lump sum of $75,000. Now, according to what I'm reading here, you're going to, after the review, oh yeah, so review existing data on facilities, including the following tasks. So obtain influent, effluent, and biosolids for a minimum of 3 years. And that's great. I just wanted to know, how far out do you go, though, if it's a minimum?
As far as looking back, usually 3 years is what DNR requires.
Right.
As far as establishing kind of what is a normal as of today. I will say, when we're looking at like a hydraulic capacity, I like to look back a solid 10 years to look at those peak storm
Okay,
events.
that was because when you used the word minimum, I was wondering
Yeah.
where the other side of the spectrum was.
What I'll say is on the loading standpoint of like how much organics or solids, a lot of times if I look at the past 3 years, that's going to be more reflective of what I would expect for current conditions with current populations. And then when I project out into the future, in 10, 20 years in the future, I can get a better sense of what that's going to be based on what it is today. But the peak storm events, if I just look back the past 3 years, and let's say they've been dry years, I'm probably not being conservative
Go
enough.
back farther.
Right.
I understand.
Yep.
And then as far as the, I guess, Jason, what would you call it when you have an emergency at the plant where, I remember some years back, something came in and just killed everything at the plant. Remember that?
Like a slug load?
Yeah, it was, yeah, something came in and it just killed all the biowork in the plant.
Okay.
And I'm wondering do you look into those things as well?
Yeah, if there's an event, especially
Yeah.
if it's caused by loading, I mean, that's something we want to understand of, is that and I've worked with Tom and Jason now for several
Okay.
years, and so we've got a pretty good handle on, how much of it is from side stream, how much of it is from industry.
So can you explain to me, and I'm sorry, I have to plead ignorance here,
okay.
what is perennial stream B?
Yeah, perennial stream B is what the DNR calls basically the ditch to which the effluent from the wastewater treatment plant goes.
Okay.
That's just upstream of Honey Creek. And
And then-
go ahead.
Okay, now, getting back to summarize the condition and performance of existing facilities, an updated condition assessment. Who assesses these? And do you also assess the lift stations?
Yes, and we do,
Okay.
to your two questions.
Now, number 10, you've got in here, prepare cost effectiveness analysis and evaluate non-monetary advantages.
Right.
I got a big question mark on that word, because
So,
as far as I'm concerned, everything at this is monetary.
right, so what I'll say is, we go through and we try to find the lowest cost of compliance for the village. That's our job. And so that means we have to understand what compliance looks like, and then we find what is usually we'll do as a total present worth or a net present value, depending how you like to think about it. Basically, what's the least amount of money hypothetically the village would have to set aside today to cover all of the operating and capital costs for the next 20 years. So that's that whole kind of net present value or total present
Well,
worth.
that's what the state, that they want us to be able to come up with that answer so that we don't get caught short.
And the idea there is essentially trying to do apples to apples. If I have a low capital cost but high operating, or I have a high capital cost but low operating, I'd like to be able to figure out, well, how does that pencil out, right? Ultimately for the ratepayers. On the question of non-monetary, generally if the net present value is within about, usually I think about 5%, DNR might allow up to 10%. Essentially that's considered equivalent at this level. Because you have to, again, understand this at the 10,000-foot view, so it's not like we're going through and counting individual widgets, right, going into each of these items. The non-monetary then are things like how much control does the village have? Is there a single supplier the village is going to be now dependent on, right? It's these sort of more qualitative, maybe PFAS or something like that. There's some sort of emerging thing that we might not have all the answers for, but we know that one option qualitatively is going to be a better fit than the other. Qualitative is not used to make a final decision unless the quantitative are, like I say, within 5, maybe 10%.
Well, that's where number 12 comes in, develop an implementation plan, correct?
Yep. And as far as the implementation plan, basically that's to give you guys an idea of, okay, so now we've gone
How
through.
to deal with it.
Well, and how fast? And, you know, when can we reasonably go and get design done so that we can bid it, so that we can get going? And how does that jibe with all the other priorities you guys have?
Okay, now the last thing I got is, according to this, design services, including the preparation of contract documents for bidding, will be identified following approval of the wastewater facilities plan. Design scope of services will be incorporated into an agreement addendum. So, I have, and again, if I'm wrong, please tell me, but I'm assuming then that we're going to, after we pay the $75,000 to get the plan, then we're gonna pay another whatever amount to get the workable design.
Yep. So the facilities planning is, again, a 10,000-foot view. What are within kind of the universe of ideas of how we're actually going to go and tackle this problem? What is an approach that's going to put the village in the best position?
That's why I'm thinking that 75,000 seems a little high on your first number.
And again, I'd be happy to give you that breakdown. Yep.
Jason, how much did we pay for the water?
For 40, for comparison's sake, the water study that we just completed was 88,000.
And
And
was
I
it,
would say it's a very comparable study to what we're doing, or what we did in the water utility.
and this is a fixed fee engagement, not T&M, right?
That's right.
Okay, yeah. So they're taking all the risk.
And we're
maybe-
spending all the money.
Leo, maybe just talk about the deliverables.
Sure. Yeah, so the main deliverable from my vantage point is that facilities plan itself, which is going to be approved by the DNR. That, as Jason said, that makes you eligible for Clean Water Fund program funding, including grants, right? But really, it lays a groundwork for the big decisions that we're going to then dig into during design. The idea of a facilities plan is you don't want to go in there, because you're going to make 90% of the choices basically within this first facilities plan. Once you get to that design level, the amount of detail and effort on kind of the team that's actually, the design engineers is much, much more, because you're getting into every last detail. How do we need to specify this so that the contractor knows what to deliver? If we're still making choices about, well, how do we want to approach this? What are kind of within the universe of ideas, which are the ideas that make most sense for the village? If we're still making those choices in the design phase, we don't have a foundational plan to build from. And that's why a facilities plan makes sense to hash it out and obviously to give the village input as we're going through it before we just start squirreling away on a detailed design that if it's not a good plan, the design's not going to be a good design.
And I guess the other thing you got to remember here too is the last wastewater facilities planning was almost 20 years ago now. It was prior to the last treatment plant upgrade.
Right.
So we're due to do it.
I understand.
Yep.
I'm not denying that it's not due and it's not something we should not do. I'm just looking at the extensive cost that's involved and no breakdown. And it's like, it's constantly, any company, anybody that comes in here, any consultant throws a big number at us and we'll say, oh yeah, sure, okay, we'll pay for that, without asking for, I'm sorry, let me finish. Without asking for any substantial, definitive proof of where these costs are going.
So I think that's been provided and gone over with Jason. I don't know how he would have been able to come up with a budget number last fall to do that. But if we need to start including that in our memos, these breakdowns, we can do that. So, any other questions on what's in front of us?
I'll make a motion to approve the wastewater facility plan proposal from Applied Technology for $75,000.
I'll second. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Be careful going home.
Thanks.
Okay, item 4, consideration of change order from Complex Security Solutions for security camera project. There's the memo here from the chief. Any other comments there, chief?
No, I did talk to them today, and the electrician sent me back an email regarding that electrical scope of the work. He said the Cradle Point requires stable power in order to appropriately communicate back to the police station. The Cradle Point would have the best reception if located up on the exterior wall of one of the corner pillars. There's power located in one of the corners and also inside of a junction box at the midpoint of one of the side walls. They would either have to weatherproof the light switch and outlet box or extend the existing weatherproof box from the midpoint over to the corner. The quote that they provided accomplished both of these items, and the event power was needed for the cameras as well. And he said if we can pull power for the cameras from the IT closet below, they will only need to update one corner and not both. So there'll be adjustment in the cost if they only update one corner.
This isn't related to,
It is actually,
Okay.
and I guess I'll just jump in here now. So, as you know, we're looking to add cameras at the airport gates as well, but there's not currently any way to install the cameras. There's no poles. So the quote in front of you is to install 2 wooden utility poles, one at each entrance, and then the camera would be mounted on those.
that's going to include lighting or are they IR cameras? How's that going to work at night?
There's already a pole up there with a light on each one, but that's We Energy's pole.
Correct.
So,
There's a street light at each gate.
yeah, there's a street light at each gate, but it's We Energy's pole, so we can't use that.
So MP is for the pole.
Installed.
Yep.
The pole installed, correct. And then the security company will then mount the camera on that pole.
So total, this looks like about 10,000, just shy of 10,000, am I right?
Between the proposed change order and the information I gave you today.
Yep.
So I went up to and I've talked to both you and Eileen about this, Chief. I went up to the top of the gazebo for the New Year's Eve, and I know we've had some audio problems, so I just want to make sure with whatever we're doing, if they're adding new conduit and things like that, that we have the ability to utilize that for any updates that we might make for audio work up there. Because if we're adding new power and, if we're doing the work, we might as well just, let's get it done and make sure it's flexible, not just for this, but for the rest of the use of the gazebo.
Okay.
I will say one thing though, and I know that, correct me if I'm wrong, but they don't usually want you to run audio in the same conduit with electric.
You don't, right. That's exactly right. You don't want to do that, so there may have to be additional, work there, yeah. So I guess what I was thinking, the reason why I asked the question about the total is, just because there's still some design questions, I want to give you guys some flexibility here and not have to come back to us. So I guess I'll make a motion that you have up to $15,000 to accomplish the poll, the change order, and any other changes that I was just mentioning. Any other questions, discussion?
Yep.
Go ahead.
I was talking to Jeremy about this, and the only concern I have is that we're getting just a lump sum figure again for the electrical work on the gazebo. Now, I know Jeremy said that includes basically two different items, which we may need one or both, they're not sure. But it just seems almost $2,700, that seems like an awful lot, just to either waterproof a box or to run a conduit up from one other side. And I would like to have seen a little bit more definitive outline of the work that was going to be done. I mean, this company's done work, Jeremy said this company's been doing our security for what, 10 years?
Whenever we
Longer
put
than
the
that.
cameras in.
Longer than that.
originally.
But I would think that, it's just, I don't know, I'm uncomfortable just giving out lump sums like this without having a little more definition to it.
So are you looking for a breakout of the scope of work, like adding 75 feet of pipe, adding outlets? You want a breakdown of the cost for those?
I just, if anything else, I would just, because like I said, I don't know if we can have an electrician look at it and do it any cheaper. But my point is, on like Jeremy's right, this company's doing the work because this is what they have to work off of, and I got that. But I would at least like to say, okay, to waterproof the outlets, it's going to be this much. To run the conduit over here for this, it's going to be that much. And to do XYZ is going to be this much. I know when I had to write bids, that's what people wanted. I just didn't throw one number at them and said, here, just take it or leave it.
I actually expected this to be a lot more, so. Okay. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion carries. All right. Item 5, consideration of revised East Troy Area Emergency Service District Agreement. Unfortunately, Jason is not able to be here with us this evening, but there is a red line copy of the agreement. So I guess just as a background, for those who may not know, we approved in essence, a variation of this modified agreement. And when it went back, I guess when it went to the town of East Troy, there was some concern about some language about the contracted areas. So I took a look at it with Barb Church, and I made some suggested changes, which a variation is what is in front of you, which is in essence 2 exhibits to the agreement. Exhibit A is what is in the district, and Exhibit B, what they've contracted to serve.
I think it was the other district, not the town of East Troy. It was the one-
Well, there were some concerns there too, but, so I believe the town of East Troy, I don't know the status for Spring Prairie, but I believe the town of East Troy has approved this version now. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a signature page attached. I should clarify, they already signed it.
So, again, since Jason is not here with us, I can try to speak to what I know from, I wasn't able to connect with him before this. I think he's ill. You see the red lines there from the attorney.
Who did the red line? Was it an attorney, or who did that?
Somebody who still used WordPerfect, which I was very surprised at. That's what it says. I know. I don't know what he's running it on. I think that they came from the attorney. I made some suggestions. So there's a couple of things in there, like it was talking about a fire commission. It's not a fire commission. It's a district commission. And so there were some other adjustments there on page 4. You'll see basically cleaning up some language saying that you've got to live within the boundaries of the municipality that's making a nomination of you to the commission. I'll be honest, I'm still not happy that we have to provide in writing. It's 2024. I would think an email is sufficient, but okay. Appointments have to be noticed in writing, but whatever. So really what this gets to is cleaning up paragraph 17 on page 9. That's where the bulk of the red lines are. This has no changes in adjusting costs.
I guess and I'm reading just off Exhibit B, which is page 11, contracted territory served, and then all sections numbered, whatever they are for the town of Lafayette, but then all property lying within the town of Troy. Now, I have to assume that's for ambulance only, correct?
Yes, and that was not what the attorney accepted as my suggestions.
Understood. It's just the way I'm reading it. If I didn't know better, I would think that our fire department have to cover it too. But since Town of Troy has their own fire department, I would kind of be an insult, but
Yep. I also proposed language that the commission had, because they're the ones who do the contracting, that they have the right, in essence, to amend this agreement restricted to Exhibit A, because then they're charging for it, but that was not in there either. This does not address what Jason and them have been working on about changing votes or about changing the funding mechanisms. So this is purely a language cleanup to define better what is and is not the district, is the way I read this. We need a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the new East Troy Area Emergency Services Agreement dated 1/12/24.
I'll second. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance 2021-01. Should that be 2024?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to go back in time. Ordinance 2024-01, consider recommendation from Plan Commission. That's okay. Consider recommendation from Plan Commission to approve rezone two adjoining parcels, RLC 0002 and RLC 0003, off of Energy Drive from Highway Business to General Industrial, TJ Properties, John Tyson, agent, application 2023-39. And this was approved at the last Plan Commission.
Essentially, they're just two parts of a storage locker area that he wants to just put in, make it concise into one unit.
And this is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2024-01, to approve the rezone to adjoining parcels. Do I need to list them out loud? Off of Energy Drive from Highway Business to General Industrial, TJ Properties application.
I'll second.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so for the next two, if you've got questions for the applicant is here. Item 2, ordinance 2024-02, consider recommendation from Plan Commission to approve rezone 5 adjoining property parcels, RXUP 00146, RXUP 00154, RXUP 00146C, RXU39P 00146E, and RXUP 00159 off of Main Street to MR10, so all development application 2023-35. So these are the properties there on Main Street that are being rezoned. I think 4 are general industrial, and then 1 is where the former house was. So, but they're all going to MR10, which is also consistent with what we're doing.
Consistent with our comprehensive plan. Okay, thank you.
Anybody have any questions for the applicant? Mary, do you have any?
No.
Okay. I think, yeah, I don't know if there's anything, Kevin, I mean, you covered it, I think, at the Plan Commission. I don't know, unless not everybody saw it maybe, but
I just decided to stand next to the mic so you guys wouldn't have to all watch me walk up.
Go ahead, Mary.
I'll make the motion to approve ordinance 2024-02 to rezone a certain property in the village of East Troy and to amend the zoning map of the village of East Troy pursuant to section 510155 of the zoning code.
I'll second. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, and the next one, ordinance 2024-03, consider recommendation from Plan Commission to approve general development plan for Overlook Ridge, a proposed development district with a total of 145 multifamily dwelling units, Sawal Development Application 2023-36. What this specifically does is it creates a plan development district. This is similar to what we did with the church, Steve Lambrecht's property. So this provides specific zoning requirements for this development and this property that's being proposed. At the February meeting, you'll have the final site development plan, I believe, right, Kevin?
Yes.
So this is just the general.
Kevin, I just did want to bring to your attention that Attorney Ekis had recommended we add some text that was not in the Plan Commission version, and it just relates to reimbursement by the developer for costs incurred, which we've already done a reimbursement agreement that covers that, so I didn't think that was going to be something that you'd be opposed to, but I wanted you to be aware that's been inserted into the ordinance.
And this is more in preparation for your final site plan, and we can talk separately if you need to, but just I think some of the questions that we've gotten from residents is just about traffic. And so I don't know if you guys have engaged someone for a traffic impact assessment.
Yeah, we're going to start doing that this week, but that was brought up today.
Any other questions, comments?
I would, let me see, how is it worded on the, let me look at it once. Maybe just, I would say approve ordinance 2024-03 with the additional language requested by the attorney, which is in the newest version that's in your packet. So the version for your approval has that language inserted already.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2024-03, recommendation from Planning Commission to approve the general development plan for Overlook Ridge with the additional language from the attorney, which is included in the agreement.
I'll second. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming out. All of you.
All right, we'll move on to reports, library board minutes from November 14th. Any questions for Mary? I will provide an update. I have a Tri-Tory meeting tomorrow. I've been talking with Derek Daria. He's been working to engage with, his name's escaping me, the county administrator. Mark Liberta, thank you. Oh, boy, it's been a long weekend. And there's some question about, are we going to be able to get through the Tri-Troy discussions and all that we need to do with the state, given that it's a presidential election year and other things. So I said, well, we just got to do what we can to keep things moving. So hopefully we'll have some more updates for you and the library board and coming soon.
Thank you.
Okay, item 2, municipal court, November 2023. Any questions there? I'm going to do 3 and 7 together. East Troy Area Emergency Services District minutes from November 14th and the fire chief's monthly report from December 19th. Any questions there?
Which numbers did you do?
3 and 7, just because they're both emergency services. Any questions there? I'll let you come back to 7 in a second. Items 4 and 5, Booth Lake Memorial Park minutes from October 18th and November 15th. Any questions for Joe?
Just a couple of quick ones, Joe. And just on the unfinished business from October, the the policy on Airbnb campgrounds. They're proposing to have campgrounds up there? It's on the October,
Campgrounds at the,
under unfinished business.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
you're asking if we have campground, if we're gonna have campgrounds?
At the park.
At the park, no. This would cover the Airbnb and campgrounds in the village, because there was an issue with some of the Airbnb people were promised that they could use the park. So we had to create a policy that would say, okay, if you can prove that you're renting that, then we'll allow that. Same with the campgrounds. So, but we're not gonna have campgrounds at the park, no.
I
Unless you wanna camp
apologize, it
there.
just wasn't that clear, and I'm going, what are
Just in
they?
January if we're gonna have it, so.
Okay.
And then the organizers or people who are attempting to organize the swim event are going to be at our Tri-Tour meeting tomorrow.
There, okay, good.
Yeah, so I'll get an update on that.
Yeah, they missed the last one, they were sick, and we've got a meeting this Wednesday, so we'll get an update from them. They're gonna be at every meeting until we have the event, of course, so.
Chief, are you plugged in on that? Are you aware of okay, we need to find,
I read it that they're thinking about having that event, but I don't know what it all entails or anything. But if it's all being held down there, it's not really going to include us, I don't think.
yeah, I have a feeling that, because it'll be in the summer, or a weekend, that there might be some people parking down by the school, walking, so.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to bring a lot of people to the area. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
All right, item 6, airport manager's report from December 13th. Any questions for Jim or Jason?
So the airport manager's report, Doug's not here tonight. I told him to take the night off. He's been working a lot with all the weather. And if there's any questions, I can field them. Otherwise, I just have 2 points of interest that I would like to bring up. First, as you all know, we're starting master planning with the airport, our airport layout plan / master planning. We had our kickoff meeting in December for that. And part of that process is forming a planning advisory committee, which is essentially just a committee of interested parties in the airport. So I would extend that invitation to anybody on the village board or anyone you know who you think could be of value to provide input for brainstorming, bouncing ideas off of things like that. It's going to be probably 3 or 4 meetings throughout that 2-year process. So if anyone's interested, email myself or Doug, or if you can think of somebody, send them our way. And then the second thing I just wanted to touch on, so we've talked about a fly-in again. As you all remember, there used to be an annual event at the airport, and the Friends of the East Troy Airport used to put that on essentially. And my understanding is with turnover and things like that in that organization, they're not interested in chairing an event any longer. They would participate. It sounded to me like on a pretty minimal level. So the question is, do we want to take something like that on? I mean, it would be great to promote our airport. My concern is staffing of something like that. I don't know that that's something we necessarily have the time for without some sort of partnership, with another organization to be able to pull that off. So, and not that we necessarily need an answer for that tonight, but if anybody has any thoughts on that, I'm just concerned that we try to do something like that at a staff level. I don't know how that would go.
So you want us to make the pancakes for the board? Is that where you're going with?
Mary.
Is that a motion?
You and I are the only two here that remember the fly-in drive-in breakfast.
And it's tough too, because I think there's a lot of potential there for an event. I mean, I remember some of those in the past and they were pretty big. I would love to see it something in with conjunction with a car show, that would be really neat. But again, those sorts of events, as we all know, take a lot of effort to get them off the ground.
What
pun
time
intended.
of the year were you thinking about doing this?
It would be tough. I mean, I think typically they did it like August, September. I don't know. Yeah, late summer. I guess I don't know. That would be all the things that would be up for discussion. But if anybody has any thoughts on it,
Yeah, I wrote down a bunch here. I mean, you got, you've the FFA at school, you got Civil Air Patrol, you got the Boy Scouts, the Eagle Scouts, they get merit badges. There's, like as Mary said, they used to have a pancake breakfast there. You could have lunch, you could serve, there's a bunch of stuff you could do. It's just a matter of getting people together that want to do it.
What does the advisory committee think?
The Friends have offered to take care of the parking. I think the food, I don't think that would be a problem. There are vendors and yeah.
like food trucks.
I would flip pancakes, but it's just the coordination of the rest of the activity, the coordination with the other surrounding airports, that would take some time.
Yeah,
Plus, plus if you could line up, like, they had, the Air National Guard had a couple of big cargo planes. They brought a cargo plane in one time. You could talk to some of the commemorative Air Force, see if they're going to be around the area. Maybe you could be tied in around the same time as, Oshkosh is going to have their flights, or maybe sometime afterwards, catch them on the way home, or, you know what I'm saying? You'd work it a few different ways.
My thoughts on it is, doing it this year would be too soon. It almost would need to look to 2025 to give adequate time to truly plan it. I know Burlington does a fly-in. Might be worth somebody going there and trying to get some ideas, so in 2025 rather than 2024.
yeah, I don't want to put this on Doug right now. I mean, he's still learning the ropes out there this year, so. But I think this ought to be something for the advisory committee to figure out, and if they're not going to organize it, then who are people who can? So, but I don't know what their opinion is of that.
I think that's the million-dollar question. I mean, there's a lot of ideas that sound great, but it's the legwork.
And that's what concerns me. I again, to Matt's point, Doug's got enough to worry about, and something like this would.
How did the snow removal go? I mean, was he able to manage?
Yeah, we had, over the weekend, we had some illness go through our department, so myself and Doug were actually plowing the streets. The intention, of course, was to have Doug just dealing with the airport, but we had to pull him back into the streets to help get things taken care of, so. But otherwise, out at the airport, yeah, things are going great. I hope the airport community is much happier with the snow removal conditions they're seeing.
It's light years ahead of where it was.
I think we'll probably get some feedback at the next advisory committee meeting.
All right, did you have any questions on the fire chief's monthly report? Okay, all right. Item 8, municipal court report from December of 2023. All right, police department 2023 fourth quarter report. Any questions for the chief?
I see the ordinance officer's been quite busy.
And my only comment was the crime history. Looks like the crime went down from 2020 to 2023 quite a bit.
Well, Marshall, it looks like you finally got control of the town.
All right. Item 10, draft plan commission minutes from last week, January 8th. Any questions for 40? I think all the interesting things we just approved. Item 11, airport advisory committee minutes from November 13th. Any questions for Jim? I will make a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. And we are adjourned. Thank you. Good night. Be careful. Heading home. Stay warm.